Hey everybody, this is Steve Haig. I'm with Next Gen Baseball. Today I'm going to be talking about what every pitcher is looking to do, and that's how they can increase their velocity. So on the screen here, I have pulled up two pitchers who are considered to be the same type, the same stature, and two pitchers who are able to throw hard and generate velocity in different ways. However, there's slight differences. Um, and I want to go over how why such humans of such stature are able to generate so much velocity. On the left-hand side, we have Tim Lincecum. He is listed at 5'11", 170 pounds, and Craig Kimbrel on the right, currently closer for the Boston Red Sox. He is listed at 6 feet, 210 pounds. And these guys have different um, slightly different things about them, just in terms of their size. They're both relatively the same height, but they're different weights. And when it comes to throwing hard is based around physics. And physics is a science that helps us define the universe around us and how things move, such as objects or how energy is transferred from one object to another. When it comes to throwing a baseball, we need to transfer as much force as possible into the baseball. So, how do we generate force? And in physics, force is defined as mass times acceleration. This means that the more an object weighs and the faster that an object accelerates, the more force it will exert on an object and the harder it will push on the next object. In this case, our body's force will be transferred into the baseball. So the more force we can create with our bodies, the more of that energy is going to be transferred into the baseball, which will translate into increase in velocity. With that brief physics lesson here, let's take a closer look at our two models that have these similar heights but much different masses, with Craig Kimbrel weighing 40 pounds more than Tim Lincecum. In Tim Lincecum's prime, he averaged about 92, 94 miles an hour, while Craig Kimbrel's fastball averages around 97, 98. And despite Lincecum's size, he's still able to throw in the low to mid 90s due to the fact that he's very explosive towards home plate, and he's able to accelerate his body mass forward at a high rate due to his back leg drive. However, compared to Kimbrel, he's unable to generate as much velocity on the baseball due to their differences in their body mass. If we take a look at Tim's motion here, we can see how he's controlled up in his leg kick. Well, he's got a very violent motion throughout, but he's controlled up into his leg kick right until his leg reaches its height right there, and then he's going to accelerate at an even faster rate downward. So he's going to be using gravity and the downward slope of the mound as well as the rubber to try and increase velocity. So if we take a look here at his video from the very beginning, if you pay close attention, you can see how he's controlled up into his motion. We'll rewind it. Pay attention, he's controlled up into his motion and he explodes downward. And he's going to drive as hard as he can and as fast as he can off that rubber, moving his energy towards home plate. All that force that he creates is with his body and his back leg is being transferred into the baseball. Again, this is physics, mass times acceleration. The more an object accelerates, the more force that is going to be transferred. So when I slow down his video here a little bit into when his knee is coming down, if we pay close attention here, we can see how he does a good job keeping his knee on the inside part of his foot. So we draw a line straight down. You can see how it's on the inside part of his foot. A lot of youth players, their shin will get stuck over the rubber, and it will look somewhat like this. If you can imagine this red line being his shin, and then having his leg transfer up, that's kind of a little bit how it looks. Let me redo that here. So we draw a line straight up, and so the shin, if you could imagine the shin being this first line here, being straight up and being on the outside part of his foot, as opposed to having his knee on the inside of his foot. This makes his drive off the rubber more efficient, and he's able to accelerate his body mass forward and towards the dish. That is what enables Tim Lincecum to generate as much velocity as he does. Craig Kimbrel, very similar mechanics. This is a little different angle here, so it's going to be hard to see, but gets his hips tucked. And Craig Kimbrel as well is very explosive towards home plate and really drives as much of his body mass. So you can see he's on a straight line here with his feet, drives his body mass towards his target, being home plate. And going back to Tim Lincecum, when we examine Tim's velocity and how his career has progressed, we see his velocity decreasing as he gets older. Now in 2016, his fastball sits in the high 80s as opposed to low to mid 90s when he was in his prime. This is simply just due to the fact that as you get older, you lose explosiveness and strength in your legs starts to go. And so Tim, unfortunately, isn't able to generate as much body or as much acceleration towards home plate with his body. Another good example is Roger Clemens. As his fastball began to decrease, when he aged. But once he started taking steroids, he was able to regain a lot of the strength back in his legs, and his fastball had dramatically increased in his later on in his 30s. So often a lot of youth pitchers are concerned with having the right mechanics and throwing strikes, and they kind of start to turn into robots, and ultimately they slow down their acceleration towards home plate and lose velocity. Always try and remember that the more we increase our body mass and the more we increase our body's acceleration towards home plate, the harder we will throw. Again, this is physics. This is just how the universe works. If you operate the same way as Tim Lincecum does and as Craig Kimbrel does, you will learn to throw harder. If you want to ask me any questions, please feel free to do so. Please feel free to like this video and send me an email at stevebbblessons@yahoo.com, or you can visit my website at www.nextgenbaseball.com. Thank you. Have a good day.